Hello and welcome back to hardreset.info. In this video, I will show you how to fix battery drain on Samsung Galaxy Tab S11. And let's begin! The battery drain fix is something very open to interpretation since the battery drain itself comes from various sources. Let's start with our display. If we go to settings and then let's simply head into display, here are all the settings we want to change for the beginning of the video. This is because, well, it's pretty obvious, but the screen is actually the one thing that eats the most battery. It's not your CPU, it's not your applications, just your screen. So let's optimize it a bit. First of all, we can enable or disable adaptive brightness. It's completely up to you. For example, I'm not a big fan of it. I think that having the 100% power of your brightness bar is probably better than having it automatic, because if I will increase it, you can see that now it automatically increased my brightness. So I will now disable it and I will lower it down. And generally speaking, you want to lower your brightness down, because the brighter the screen, let's just bump this up incredibly. I know everything is dark now. If you bump up your brightness a lot, everything will need more battery to display itself because it's just brighter. It's just how it works. So if you want to, you can always just lower down your brightness, even tremendously. And I would say, personally, to disable the adaptive brightness, since with the adaptive brightness you don't have as much control over that feature, at least to me. But if you want to, you can always leave it on. Now we can go into motion smoothness, and you probably want to make sure that you have it set to standard. I know that adaptive sounds more fancy, as it will, sometimes adjust your refresh screen to 120 Hz, so when you're scrolling you can have a smooth scroll. The problem is that rarely people actually notice the difference. I know that there are quite a few people who think that there is a very big difference, but like maybe in gaming, sure, in gaming the refresh rate is pretty important, but on the tablet itself, I don't think so. And it's pretty obvious, as you can see. We can even see here that we can get a longer battery life by just setting it up to 60 Hz. So yeah, it does help you battery drain if you have one, and kind of it makes your screen worse, but in reality you'll probably get used to it, or even better, you won't even notice a difference. So now we can go into the screen timeout itself, and as you can see, it is currently set to 10 minutes, which is quite a lot. This means, if you don't know, that after 10 minutes of inactivity, my screen should automatically lock itself, which is all cool and all, but what if I would, for example, just stop the video now and leave the room? Well, my Samsung Tab S11 would still be turned on for a whole 10 minutes, and only then it would just turn itself off. So I would advise you to set it to, for example, 1 minute or at best 2 minutes, because generally speaking, the bigger the value, the bigger the battery usage. Also, you can set it to very low amount, like 30 seconds, but keep screen on while viewing on. And with that, you won't really have the disadvantage of having a low screen timeout, because I think everyone was there when you were using your phone and then it just turns itself off, even though you're still using it, which is not very cool, which is why many people in the first place increase the screen timeout. But with that simple changes, you should increase the battery usage, but there is one simple setting that I actually kind of left out, and it's the light mode itself. And because many screens nowadays are OLED screens, this means that the brighter the pixel, the bigger battery usage. That's pretty self-explanatory. This is why brightness increase will also increase the battery usage. But if you will switch it to dark mode, now I know my camera here will do weird things, but if you switch to dark mode, you will notice that many things now are actually darker, which means that naturally they have decreased battery usage, because they just don't need as much battery power to display themselves since they are black. But I will change the back just because you can, I believe on the video itself you can watch the light mode better than dark mode. So Technically speaking, this is all for the display section of our display, but there is second biggest use feature that uses your battery and is the CPU itself. Now, how do we actually decrease the CPU? Well, we could go into battery and into power saving, and by default, if we enable power saving, few things actually enable themselves, but most important one is here at the top, limiting CPU speed to 70%. And it is very cool. Technically, you could disable that if you think that it's slowing down your tablet, but in reality, if you're not gaming in some very huge games, then this shouldn't really matter. And generally speaking, the power saving mode is very, very cool and all, but it tends to be pretty annoying if you have to, like, manually turn it on each time. But what if I told you that you can actually do it automatically? Well, in order to do it, you want to navigate further up and then head into modes and routines. Now, in here we have two things, modes and routines. Technically, this is doable in the modes, but personally I prefer routines better, since they just give you more things to do. So, let's simply click the plus icon and let's create a new routine. Now, this may seem kind of hard to do, this is kind of hard to follow, but I will try to do it as slow as possible. And if you want to learn more about routines themselves, because they are really, really cool, you can always watch my full tutorial on routines on our channel here. So, let's go into the triggers. And now we want to scroll down a little and find battery level. Now, let's simply get rid of our 5 here, which I can't do for some reason. Thank you. And now I will input, for example, let's go into 20. And I will hit done. This means that we now have a condition that will activate this routine every single time our battery drops below 20%. And inside then, our routines should automatically detect that we want to do something with battery, and it will already suggest us the power saving mode. But if you don't see it, you can always just go into search and type in power saving mode, which I failed. And we should have it right here. So now let's go and let's make sure that now it's enabled, and let's simply save the routine. We can keep the name of battery level, that's completely fine, and I will change the icon to something like this, or maybe let's set it to this reddish color, and let's hit done. And with that simple thing, now every time our battery drops below 20%, our power saving mode will automatically enable itself, giving us more time to use our device before the battery completely drains out. Of course, if you want to edit this routine, we can always hit edit. And now, for example, you can change the threshold. So let's say that you want to make sure that your battery level is, let's set it to 30, for example. So let's try to remove this. And now let's set it to 30. So as you can see, you can easily do that. And now our power saving mode will enable itself only after our battery drops below 30%, and after we charge up our phone and then we increase it, it should automatically disable itself. We can actually improve this even further, but this is like very advanced. But we can go into add action, we can try to navigate into advanced options, and now we want to go into if else. So now we can go into if. We want to tap to set the condition, which doesn't work for some reason. No, wait, why it's not working? Maybe because I'm clicking the wrong thing, but we definitely want to go upwards with this. And then we want to simply go, I'm sorry, I just paused the video because I was trying to go here, but you actually want to click here. So that was quite stupid. But anyway, now we want to get our charging status. And let's go into is charging. It doesn't really matter how we are charging. So now we have this kind of complicated condition, but now we want to get rid of the power saving in here, so let's remove it. And now we want to go into else and enable power saving mode. So this looks kind of complicated. I absolutely get it, because this looks like very chaotic thing. But basically, whenever our battery drops below 30%, we want to check if we are currently charging our device. So, and if we are, we're just doing nothing, it doesn't really matter. But if we are not charging currently, we want to enable power saving mode. This way, we don't really have to bother with limited CPU speed or dark mode if you don't want it, whenever we are dropped below 30%, but we are charging up our device anyway. Of course, you can always skip that and you can have it so the power saving mode is always on no matter what when your battery drops below 30%. But I think that this simple, though quite complicated at first glance, change will improve your quality of life tremendously. So now we simply hit save, and as you can see, because we dropped below 30%, our automatic routine is currently running, which is pretty cool. But anyway, that's all for this video. If you found it useful, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.